Rediscovering Gita for the Modern World by Shrikant Soman, based on essays on Gita by Sri Aurobindo. Chapter 8 continued. Sankhya and Yoga continued from the previous episode 68. Gita's departure from Sankhya, the Unity of Purusha. Current episode 69. The Unborn and the Many, Reconciling the One Self and Multiple Beings. Resolving the Paradox, the Gita's Triple Purusha. The Two Birds, One Tree, Unpacking the Gita Solution to Duality. Key takeaways. The Central Paradox. The passage explores the central paradox of the Bhagavad Gita's philosophy, how the one, immutable and unborn self, a vikari, can be both the cause of all action and mobility, while also being the same self that appears as multiple conscious beings, anisha, who are subject to delusion and bondage. The Dual Purusha, drawing from the Upanishads, the text introduces the concept of a dual status for the Purusha. One is the eternally free, silent and unbound witness, and the other is the Purusha involved in nature, subject to enjoyment and suffering. Two birds on a tree, an analogy from the Upanishads, illustrates this duality. One bird, the bound Purusha, eats the fruits of the tree, cosmic experience, while the other, the unbound Purusha, silently watches. The first bird finds liberation upon realizing the greatness of the second, representing the individual's reversion to their higher liberated status. Liberation as reversion. The liberation of an individual being does not affect the cosmic process, because it is a reversion of that individual soul to its higher, eternally free status. Triple status of the Purusha. The passage anticipates a more complete solution in the later chapters of the Gita, which will introduce a third element or a triple status of the Purusha, to fully reconcile the one immutable self, the active Lord, and the multitude of individual beings. We now need to get back to the original proposition of Gita at its beginning. It is of the one self who is immutable, immobile, and eternally free. That one self is free from all change or involution in change. One who is avikari, unborn, unmanifested, the Brahman. Yet it is that, by which all this is extended. Therefore at first it would seem that the principle of the Ishvara is in its being. We then need to solve the paradox that even though it is immobile, it is still the cause and lord of all action and mobility. How is this possible? And what about the multiplicity of conscious beings in the cosmos? We need to reconcile these apparently conflicting theories. These beings certainly do not seem to be the Lord. Actually, they are anything but the Lord, Anisha. This is because these beings are subject to the action of the three gunas and the delusion of the ego sense. If we accept that they are all the one self as per the Gita, then how did this involution and subjection and the delusion of the ego sense come about? How is it explicable except by the pure passivity of the Purusha? And how did the multiplicity arose? How is it then possible that while the one self in body and mind attains to liberation, in others it remains under the delusion of bondage? We need to have a satisfactory solution to this paradox. The Gita offers its solution in its later chapters by an analysis of Purusha and Prakriti. It then brings in new elements which are very proper to a Vedantic yoga. However, they are alien to the traditional Sankhya. It speaks of three Purushas, or rather a triple status of the Purusha. The Upanishads, in dealing with the truths of Sankhya, seem sometimes to speak only of two Purushas. It states that there is one unborn of three colors. There is the eternal feminine principle of Prakriti, with its three gunas. It is ever creating. There are two unborn, two Purushas. Of these two, one cleaves to and enjoys her. The other abandons her because he has already enjoyed all her enjoyments. In another verse, they are described as two birds on one tree. They are eternally yoked companions. One of the bird eats the fruits of the tree. He represents the Purusha in nature, who enjoys her cosmos. The other bird does not eat any fruit. He silently watches the other bird. He represents the silent witness. This witness has withdrawn from the enjoyment. As soon as the first bird sees the second bird, who is silently watching him and understands all his greatness, then he is delivered from sorrow. Though the point of view of these two verses is different, they do have a common implication. One of the birds is the eternally silent, unbound self or Purusha. By him, all this is extended. He regards the cosmos which he has extended. At the same time, he is aloof from it. The other bird is the Purusha, involved in Prakriti. The first verse indicates that the two are the same. They represent different states of being bound and of being liberated. These states belong to the same conscious being. The second unborn has descended into the enjoyment of nature and withdrawn from her. The other verse brings out what we would not gather from the former. The self is forever free in its higher status of unity. He remains unattached, even though he descends in its lower being into the multiplicity of the creatures of Prakriti. He withdraws from it by reversion in any individual creature to the higher status. This theory of the double status of the one conscious soul opens a door. However, the process of the multiplicity of the one is still obscure.